What I want to do in this video is basically go over how to pick good Minecraft speedrunning keybinds and how you personally should go about making them for yourself. I've got at the top of my screen two phrases, good keybinds and good keybinds. No, this isn't a typo, this wasn't an accident. This is going to be the first concept I want to explain to you. This is the fact that good keybinds are good keybinds, no matter whose hands they are placed in. Let's take a situation. Let's say you've got Loki over here. Loki, a top Minecraft speedrunner, playoffs winner, 3 times champion. And we've got Infume. You might know him because he struggles to talk to women, or you may know him from somewhere else, maybe as a good Minecraft speedrunner. Whatever the case is, Loki and Infume both have different keybinds. The claim that I'm essentially making with this definition is that no matter who has keybinds, they are equally as good. So, for example, Loki has objectively better keybinds than Infume. There's a lot of reasons why, and we'll get to why potentially later in the video, or it will just be explained through other examples. But let's say, for a second, that Loki goes ahead and sends his keybinds over to Infume. Infume copies them, and now Infume boots up the game. He will be in equally as good of a situation that Loki is in. And now you might be going, Altoid, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you actually did this, Infume would look like he didn't know how to play the game. In fact, he would struggle to even complete a run. And this does bring us to the shortfalls of this definition. The first one is familiarity. Let's say you come from a background of survival, very simple background. You have your default 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Your keybinds are default, right? So if, let's say, you start to speedrun and you use 8 as your lava bucket, and you reach all the way over, you take your small little index finger and you reach all the way from where it's sitting here, all the way over to 8. Now in the short term, leaving the 8 slot and the lava bucket the way it is will be the best solution for you because of familiarity. But eventually, if you change this, let's say you move your 8 slot over to F, let's put your 8 slot on F. In the beginning, you will be so lost, you will not know where to reach, and every single time you try to get to your lava buckets, you will have to think about it. But eventually, your muscle memory will take over, and this will be the better solution, and it will eventually become better than what you currently have. And that is the theory behind the Loki Infume keybinds, where if Infume did switch to Loki's keybinds, in the beginning, he would have no idea what's going on, but eventually, he would get better and better and better. But there's also another approach, another solution you can take. You would maybe put your lava bucket in 4, or maybe 3. In fact, you could even put it in 6 or 7. Anything is better than 8. Now, the second shortfall of this definition is the fact that we are all different. We are all different. Everybody has a differently sized hand. Me personally, I have a big one, but I know that a lot of people have smaller ones. For example, for me to reach from E, which is my forward key, to F3, which I do not use, but let's just, in this hypothetical, let's say that I reach from E to F3 to do an action. It's going to be very easy for me to do that, as opposed to someone who has a smaller finger. But there are solutions to this. There are solutions. You can potentially change your keyboard size. You can buy a smaller keyboard. You can also increase the length of your fingers. That was a joke. Don't try to do that. The main point of this section of the video is basically to say you should not use familiarity as your main deciding factor when it comes to choosing your keybinds, because at the end of the day, you want your long-term capabilities to outreach your short-term capabilities. It's better to struggle at first than to struggle later, because later you're going to be better at the game and you're going to want to play better and faster. Now you might be saying, Altoid, how do I actually make decisions on what my keybind should be? Because I have something that I currently use, and I don't want to switch everything that I have, and that would be incorrect. You do not want to switch everything you currently have, because you will have no frame of reference to make decisions based off of. It will be incredibly hard to play. So you do want to start with something you're familiar with. And so let's say you play one game. We're going to call this testing. You play a game. maybe a private room. Maybe you buy stone pickaxe tier and you test out your current layout, or you just go in a survival world and start playing. Whatever it is, you test. And then at the end of your test, it can be however long you want, you go ahead and identify problems. You go ahead and identify problems. Let's give a hypothetical situation. I'm struggling to press F3. I have to press F3 so many times during the speedrun, and it's incredibly hard to take my little hand from the W key, or maybe, let's say you use your index finger, so not your W key, but let's say WASD, sorry, I'm struggling here. D, let's say it's hard for me to reach all the way from where it currently sits at D, all the way up to F3, and I have to do this so many times during the run. What can I do to solve this problem? And so we come up with a solution. So this solution is going to be, let's move F3 all the way down here to C. It's a lot closer now, and this is actually what I use for my F3 key. And so now we get to step 2, which is test again. Test again. You want to do this same step over and over. And very quickly, if you do this, you will run into another problem, which is that you're going to be in your eye measurement split, and you're going to not be able to measure the eye, because to do that, you have to press F3 plus C. And C no longer exists on your keyboard, because you've rebound F3 to the key. And now let's say, okay, well, let's move F3 to C and C to F3. This should be a perfect solution. This should essentially be your guide to how you decide your keybinds. This should be the process you go through. And this is what I've been doing recently, because I've realized that my keybinds are unoptimal. So the next thing I want to talk about is where you place your hand normally. Your movement keys, which is where your hand should be most of the time. Most people use WASD, which is not a bad option. It's the default option in most games, but I would hypothesize that ESDF is a much better option. And the reason being, as long as your hands are not freakishly small, you will have the ability to use more keys. Because if you have your hands over on WASD, on these keys, it's going to be harder to reach over here. However, if you're using ESDF, it makes these keys like a bit more accessible. Now for the next section, I want to talk about pyraying. One of the more important parts of the Minecraft speedrun is finding where the fortress is. And to do that, you're going to need to bring up your F3 menu. So let's go ahead and write the keys that we're talking about. Or the functions, I should say, because you might not actually use the F3 key as F3. You may rebind it in tool screen. So let's talk about F3. F3, the function. Let's talk about shift. Shift has the function when pressed with F3. Shift will bring up the pie chart, which is how you pyray. And let's also talk about forward. Let's talk about forward, and let's also talk about jump. I almost wrote space, but what I mean is jump. You may not have jump on space. I would recommend it because it's very familiar for most people, but let's talk about these 4 controls all at the same time. One thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sprint jump forward. You're going to have to press the pie chart because you want to find the fortress. And in fact, if you want to change your render distance, you also have to press F. The F3 plus F, let me draw a little line here, F3 plus F will increase your render distance, and then Shift F3F will lower your render distance. And you want to be able to continue to move while you do these actions. And if I draw dots on the default locations, if I draw dots, let's say here, here, usually you have W as forward, here's your space bar, and where's F? F is right here. If you have all of these, you may notice something. There's 5 spots. There's 5 spots, which means every single one of your fingers needs to be occupied to be able to do this action. And now you might be saying, well, Altoid, I don't actually want to sprint jump while I am changing the pie chart and finding the fortress because I'm in the bastion. I don't actually need to move around. And this is usually the case. You don't actually need to be pressing forward and jump while pyraying because you're trying to stay in one location so that you can correctly identify where the fortress is. But I will say that it's very important to consider the controls you do immediately after. What am I going to be doing as soon as I finish pyraying? As soon as I finish getting the pie chart to the correct position, I am going to be sprinting forward and jumping. Now let me go ahead and erase all of this and show you what I use for Shift F3. I'll show you basically my keybinds and my reasoning behind them. So for me, crouch is K, which is on this key, and that means I rebound Shift to this key. So no longer, when I press Shift, does my character crouch. And that's important because often you want to be Shift F3ing, but you also want to be able to move quickly because you're in a speed run, and the faster you go, the faster you go. I don't think I have to explain that. And so this is where I have, oh, wait, let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. This is where I have my F3. Because I know, okay, I'm going to have to press Shift F3. I can't put F3 somewhere like here because I cannot press these two keys at the same time. This is another consideration when you're deciding your keybinds. And so now I'm like, okay, well, if this is where F3 is, and this whole process took a lot of testing, a lot of test problem solution to get to this stage, but now, I need to have F, which is here. I need the F key to be somewhere that I can also press in quick succession and with F3. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my F key here. And the reason that this ends up being good is the fact that I can put my pinky on Shift, I can put on F, I can have my ring finger, which is usually on F because that is also my move left key, so that's where it sits normally. And then I can put my middle finger on forward, I can put my index finger on F3, and I can keep my hand on space. And if you notice, if you look at this hand, it actually looks quite normal. I mean, not the drawing, of course. The drawing is quite crude, but what I want to say is that all of the fingers don't have to move around in order to change the pie chart. I can leave my hand in the same position that it normally is. Now I could continue on for ages about my own setup and why I think it's good or why I think it's bad, but what I want to leave you with at the end of this video is just things that you should 100% do, no matter what your situation is, no matter what you're familiar with. These are things that you need to change for Minecraft speedrunning, and the first one, the most obvious one that everybody knows, is F3 needs to change. A very notable runner that does not change their F3 key is Feinberg. And Feinbang. Now, Feinberg is very obviously a very good Minecraft speedrunner, very often sits at the very top of the leaderboard. So you might say, well, Altoid, you're not as good as Feinberg. And while that's true, that does not mean that everything that Feinberg does is optimal. So you do not want to have F3 on its default key. Second one is going to be pick block. The second one is going to be pick block. The default location for the pick block control is on your middle mouse button. There are so many reasons why this is a terrible idea, because your middle mouse button, right, let's draw a little mouse off to the side here just for a reference. Your middle mouse button is also the same as your scroll wheel, and your scroll wheel actually changes the slots in your hotbars. So while you're trying to pick a block, you end up changing the slot, putting the block where you don't want it, or potentially switching off the block after you've pick blocked, and the entire thing is just a nightmare. And the main reason it's a nightmare is because of the zero cycle. The zero cycle. When you're in the middle of a zero cycle, or maybe if you're a beginner, you're doing a one cycle, and you need to be clicking very quickly and then pick blocking immediately after. If this is on your middle mouse button, you're going to be slower. And this is actually where I've had pick block for the last 3 years of my Minecraft speedrunning experience, and it has severely tanked my ability to move quickly. Now, the third and final thing that I want to mention is mouse buttons. You've got your obvious left click and you've got your obvious right click that every single mouse has, but a lot of gaming mice have these mouse buttons on the side, which at first glance you might think, wow, this is a wonderful position to put my vital hotkeys. But in fact, this is probably the worst spot. The worst possible spot for vital hotkeys. So I'm going to write no vital hotkeys on side mouse buttons. It's a bad idea, and the main reason is because often in the Minecraft speedrun, let me move off to the side here, often in the Minecraft speedrun, I'm going to draw a little screen here. You're going to be doing things like, let's say your one slot is here, and I used to have my one slot here, and let's say you're in the crafting grid. Let me draw a little crafting grid here, and one of your items. Oh, this is a very crude crafting grid. I really hope I'm getting my point across here. But you have an item. In your one slot. You have an item here, and you want to bring it up into the grid, but you're currently moving back from this. So you're moving your mouse to the right side of the screen. If you press on this button right here, if you press here, now all of a sudden you have this pressure on the left side of your mouse. And what's going to happen is while you're moving over here, you're going to slow the mouse down, and it's going to be very hard to essentially keep your mouse in a steady, controlled position while you have your finger on this left button. So anything that's very mouse moving intensive, you do not want to put on these keys. And this actually means that on your mouse buttons, on your side mouse buttons, there are very few items that can actually go here. In fact, there are so few things that I would almost argue there's only two. You might be able to come up with a third or a fourth, but I do believe there are only two things that you can put on these buttons that are actually going to be optimal. The first of that is F3. When you're using your F3, you almost never need to be whipping your mouse all over the place, so this is fine to have F3 on a mouse button. And the other one is going to be your offhand. Offhand is almost exclusively used for inventory sorting, or for zero pick block offhanding. But that happens only once your mouse is in a steady position anyways. So I do believe that F3 and offhand are the only two that should ever go on the mouse button. If you have any other ideas of things that don't use much mouse movement, you can go ahead and put those in the comments. And I know that I said that this was the third and final thing, but there actually is a fourth thing that every Minecraft speedrunner should do, and that is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is something that about 99% of people do not do, and it would greatly increase your odds of being better at the game. The next video is going to be about treasure bastions and ordering, so stick around for that one.